What's up, everybody? What's going on? Are we excited for Tom? Let's see if Tom is here. Tom is here. Tom!
What's up, dude? How's it going?
Tom! What's going on? How are you?
I'm good, man. How about you?
Tom is in the building.
Yeah, buddy.
Good. How's quarantine been treating you?
Yeah, it's good, man. The company can still thrive even though we're, doing it remote. It's not my ideal, but my wife is like my favorite human on the planet, so being locked in with her is just all right.
No, I love that, Tom. And just to give, as everybody's kind of flooding in here, to give Tom and everybody just some context, Tom and I met about 2 years ago. Time is really crazy right now.
I know, it's nuts, man.
I met about 2 years ago. We met through my dear friend Adrusha, and I remember talking to Adrusha, and I was telling her that I was really just being conscious of the content that I was consuming, and how that allows to just kind of that manifest in different areas of my life. And I was telling her about impact there, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I know Tom. We're like out eating," and she's casually like, "Yeah, I know Tom," and I was like, "What do you mean you know Tom?" She's like, "I know Tom." And Tom, like with work, I meet a lot of different amazing individuals, but I'll say what really, really made me really excited to meet you, and you were so warm with me, thank you, I appreciate that, was just the fact of how you use your platform. Because I think we all have platforms. I think we have to dispel that rumor. Everybody on here is logged in, everybody has a platform, but it's just how you've used your platform that I find so fascinating. And when I started having these conversations with people I respect their work, I was like, I gotta get Tom. I was like, I'm gonna get a few more people, then I'm gonna hit Tom. And I think it's important, Tom, because when we're looking at somebody's journey in totality, I think that we think about their destination. And then as people, we compare where we are and our destination to where they are. And then we're like, we'll never get there, right? But I think it's about the lessons, the decisions, and all of the things you learn along the way that really, really give you sustaining power. Because I think the idea is we want to get there. But I think the reality is we want to get there and stay there.
Right.
Wherever there is. And you've been so open about just you didn't have early signs of success. Like you said, you've been very, very open about your mom and how much she loves you, but also how much she thought that you were probably going to fail. And I had this whole idea of how I wanted this conversation to go until I heard an interview that you did with Sheddy recently. And then you said in that interview, which altered my entire universe, and you said, when people see me, they see success, but what you're really seeing is my belief, my values, how I identify with myself. And I just thought, you know what, it'd be interesting to tell your story through each of those things and how we as people can also do the same thing. So I wrote down exactly what you said. You said I identify, you said when they see my success, they actually see how I identify myself, my values, my beliefs, my rules, my habits, and my routines. So starting with identify, I just wanted to ask you, how do you identify yourself, and what has been your journey to identifying yourself?
Yeah, so my identity and how you identify yourself is one of the most important things you will ever do. And the way that I identify is as a learner. And I got to that because I wanted to identify as smart, and life just kept handing me my ass. And so, it was tough. So growing up, I don't know if you've seen the movie Amadeus.
Yeah.
I think in movie terms, movies have always spoken to me maybe more loudly than the next person. In the movie Amadeus, which is inspired by, probably is the most accurate word, inspired by Mozart Amadeus Mozart. And there's a character called Salieri, and in the movie Salieri, who's a contemporary of Mozart, he laments to God, and he says something that encapsulated how I felt to a T. And he said, God, why did you make me just good enough to realize how much better Mozart is? Because if you had made me as good as I have the chills just saying it again. If you had made me as good as Mozart, I could obviously be happy with that. Or if you'd made me too dumb to recognize how good Mozart was, I could be good with that. But to be just good enough to know that I'll never be as good as him is a punishment that is so beyond the pale. And I thought, oh my God, that's my curse. I'm just smart enough to realize how much smarter other people are. And I'm not as smart as they are, and I'm not dumb enough to miss it. So I was like, for literally probably a good decade, that was my lament. And finally I realized yo, if you just want to feel good about how smart you are, like go put yourself in smaller places, because constantly chasing this big ambitious dream is painful. And I said, your alternate option is to view yourself completely differently, because what you build your self-esteem around really matters. And I don't think people think that it's a choice. I think people have these subroutines running, the beliefs and values and all that, that they think are just true and objective truth. And in reality, they were decisions that you've been making since you were a little kid, probably handed to you by your parents and where you grew up. But once you realize, oh, wait, these are all things I have chosen to believe, and I can choose to believe something different. And so I just decided I was going to choose, instead of valuing myself for being smart, I was going to value myself for learning. So since I couldn't, life had proven, avoid making mistakes, then I might as well value myself for learning from them. And that was like, that is the one thing in my life that I will say was a lightning rod moment where I remember where I was. A very clear line can be drawn before and after that. Everything else sort of came on gradually, but that one was just boom, holy shit. Like, if I now think of myself as a learner and derive value from that, I can feel good about myself while improving. And I don't need to be anything. I can just focus on becoming something.
And as I am right now is enough. I think there's this idea that we have to become, and you have to sharpen those skills, but you also have to just know that baseline, like work on baseline, get that belief and that understanding of how you identify yourself correct, right? And then
I'll say something a little bit different. So I am driven by an excitement over the fact that I could be more. And I do.
Wait, Tom, did you guys hear that? Like, I just want to make sure that you guys understand. If you guys are here, we're just saying, throw some flowers up here. Because we got to, you know what, Tom? We got to give people flowers while they're here, while we can smell them. You know what I'm saying? And we got to throw some flowers in here. I'm listening. Go ahead.
So, yeah, my thing is, I was just asked yesterday, and this is a question I've thought so much about. Somebody could ask me anytime, anywhere, and I will give the same answer. What's the meaning of life? And the meaning of life to me is very simple. As a species, there are two options. Do you come hardwired with everything, or do you choose adaptation as a path? Horses choose pre-wiring, which is why they come out and literally within minutes, dude, they're up walking around, they can run, it's crazy. A human cannot, right? We're in diapers, we can't walk, we can't talk. Our brain doesn't finish developing until we're 25. And it's not because the brain matter in those regions is harder to create than anything else. It's not. It's that we've chosen adaptation. So before you like put the lid on it, it's like you want to give the brain the ability to grow in any sort of direction. So if you know that the human animal as a species, we have chosen adaptation as our preferred method of growth, then it's like, well, the whole point of this exercise is to see how much potential, which you were born with, you can turn into actual skill set. And that to me is the question all of our lives must answer, right? Is what do you care enough about to get good at? And if you don't have this push of I could be better, then you will never answer that question in any sort of profound way. The key is, and what you're saying that I agree with is, your value doesn't change. Like, you don't become a better person because you do something, but you do become far more effective at things. And I think part of the disconnect for people in this age, where people want to love each other and they want to, like, you know, have a spiritual life and feel good just like as they are, is that violates what I call the laws or the physics of being human. You have innately, every child, does not matter if their brain is developed normally, every single child has a push at their back to develop themselves. A species would have to have that if adaptation is what they've chosen as the strategy. So it's like, humans are an active species. That was the first time I realized, whoa, wait a second. Like, there is physics to this game. Like, neutral for a human is, you want to be active, you want to explore your environment, and you want to come to control it, right? So fear of the unknown is like the number one fear that people have. It freaks them out because we have this compulsion to dominate our environment, to not be afraid anymore, to sleep in a cave instead of out in the open so that you know sort of what things are. And leaning into that and recognizing you have to be very careful about self-esteem and value and all that, and that you have to, at your lowest low, you've got to love yourself. But dude, it's tricky because of the physics of being human. If you're not doing anything to express your potential, if you're not making progress, you won't be able to love yourself. So it's like this weird thing of, if you want self-respect, you have to earn it, and no one can command you to self-respect. Like, you actually have to do things that align with that sort of human nature. And so that's the space that I play in. Like, I want to tell people, just love yourself and everything will be okay. And it just won't. So like you have to earn it. You have to earn that respect. But there's like all these games you can play, like what you build your self-esteem around, seeing yourself as a learner instead of needing to accomplish. It's a complicated game, man.
Well, and I think I think what I want to ask you too is, and I'm gonna get my headphones like you have because it's chopping up on my end. Do you think in order to love yourself, you have to forgive yourself first?
Yeah, I think that is something that a lot of people struggle with, for sure. I don't think any of us get out of childhood without damaging our sense of who we are. Either someone does it to us or we do it to ourselves. And like childhood trauma is a real thing. Like your brain is just wide open. It's a sponge, and cruelty lodges itself in your brain and begins to shape your sense of identity and all that. And even that, like oddly enough, is you have to forgive yourself. People end up beating themselves up. You know, I was 6 and like they still manage to like feel badly about what they did to put themselves in XYZ situation. So I think that's a huge part of it. I think recognizing that you can change and that it doesn't matter who you are, it matters who you want to become and the price you're willing to pay to get there. And then just recognizing the truth of like the brain and the way that it gets in these loops, right? So you've been beating yourself up, feeling shame, feeling guilt. Well, now the brain is designed to do, the brain is, I think, what, 3% of your body weight, but it makes up 20% of your caloric usage. So it's like your brain is small, but it uses all this energy. And so as a survival mechanism, you've built in these routines to think the thoughts and feel the feelings that take the least amount of energy, like truly at a caloric level. And so what your brain does is it's called myelination. It wraps fatty connective tissue between different neurons, which people have probably heard, neurons that fire together, wire together. Okay, that wiring is myelination. And what that's doing is it's moving things into what's called the default mode network. So if you've ever driven to work and been like, how the fuck did I get here? I don't even remember driving. It's because you've done it so many times. Your brain's like, I know this. It moves it to the default mode network. So it's actually calorically less taxing. And so when you realize, oh, I've been rehearsing this shame, this guilt, this pain, this whatever, I'm dumb, you think all these thoughts, they actually get easier to think. And so when you slip in, like legitimately calorically less problematic to think them. So when your brain slips into neutral, it slips back to those thoughts, those feelings, those networks, ways of being and perceiving the world that you have to unwind. And the only way to unwind them is to let them atrophy, so you're not using them. And the only way to not use something that you're so used to using is to create something new. But that takes energy and effort. So in the beginning, it's really hard. And it feels like a lie, right? You're telling yourself, I am good enough, that I'm a learner, and I'm going to value myself for learning, and making mistakes is okay. And a part of your brain is screaming, that's bullshit, motherfucker, and you know it. And it's like, you know you're not good enough. You know that. Like, you've lived it. Think about all the mistakes. You did this. You embarrassed yourself here. People said this. Like, you come on. And what you don't realize is literal repetition is the thing that separates the patently false from the obviously true. And you can come to believe anything, no matter how absurd it is, if you repeat it enough, right? Think about the whole thing. You might be too young for this, but like when we kicked off the war in Iraq, it was all about weapons of mass destruction, weapons of mass destruction. And when we got there, there weren't any. And they just kept linking those two things, right? This is Iraq and weapons of mass destruction. And it was like, wait a second, they weren't even involved in the attack on America. How the fuck did we end up in Iraq? But they just kept saying it. And so you repeat it enough, 100%. And it's all it takes, dude. Repetition is like the most powerful thing that people could use in their own life, but the only thing they repeat is the negative shit that's become easy to think. And if they just repeated empowering stuff, their life would be different.
So then, I'm gonna get this headphones, but I want to ask you if I can hear you. Science, right? At what point did you really start, as you started continuing through your journey, at what point did you start to involve science? Because what you're talking about is science.
I'll give you that answer. Right? Put your headphones on, and then I'll tell you.
All right.
In the meantime, I will read comments. What's up, everybody in the feed, by the way? Good to see everybody. The statute of limitations has expired on most of our childhood traumas. Respect. Let them go.
All right, Tom. Science.
All right, welcome back.
These flowers. He's dropping. Give Tom his flowers. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So science is really one of the things that saved me. So I'm in that solely airy phase of my life, right, where I'm like, why am I just smart enough to realize how dumb I really am? And I was sliding towards depression, man. It was gnarly. So I graduate film school. I was one of only 4 people chosen to do a senior thesis film, and I thought, here it is. Like, this is my ticket. I've worked my ass off to get this. And my senior thesis film was trash. It was an absolute dumpster fire. And it was devastating emotionally. And I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to make it. This is before YouTube. This is back when a no budget film cost $100,000. I didn't know anybody with $100,000. I'd never seen that kind of money, man. Like the way I grew up, like that was so, it might as well have been $10 million for real. Like that, it was just so far outside of my realm. And I was like, I just tried making a film and it was a disaster. So I'm at this point, I would come home and I would just lay on the floor in my unfurnished apartment because I couldn't afford furniture. And I would lay on it with like the carpet smushing into my face. And I remember the feel of that cheap, like nylon synthetic fiber carpet. And I would just lay there like, what the fuck am I going to do? My parents weren't helping me financially. I had $25,000 in student loans. My job was fucking as dead end as they come. And I was just like, oh my God. And I don't have talent as a filmmaker. This is like literally what my whole life was supposed to add up to. And
Mom was right. Mom was right. Was mom
legitimately.
right?
And I was like, Jesus Christ, I didn't know what to do. And so at that moment, I heard somebody say something about brain plasticity. And I was like, that's interesting. Go on.
Yeah.
And I started reading about it. And it was really contested. So this is the late 90s. It's like 99. And I'm reading about it. And right then, the movie The Matrix comes out, which if anybody wants to know how I got so obsessed with that movie and it became the dominant metaphor of my life, it's because that's a movie about what I call the only belief that matters. And I start reading about brain plasticity. It's debated. And I'm like, all right, I choose to believe that brain plasticity is real. And the punchline of brain plasticity is that your brain will actually change as you learn new things, right? Going back to that, humans have chosen adaptation. And the way that humans have become the most dominant apex predator this world has ever seen is that ability to learn from your environment, to get better, to let culture stack, right? Like if you think of singing, right? You're now standing on the giants that came before you, from the technology that you have from the music. I mean, the fact that you can make a song there in your apartment is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Think about 100 years ago. If you had said, no, I can record a whole symphony in like a closet, people would be like, shut up, right? It doesn't even make sense, but it's real and it's true. So like that's how culture stacks. Every generation, they don't have to reinvent the technology. They don't have to reinvent musical knowledge. It's all there. And you learn it. You can learn it so early. So anyway, I'm like, I choose to believe that this is real. I'm going to go hard on this. And I started researching the brain. And my thing is, once I can picture it, if I can understand the mechanisms, and I'm obsessed about this. So I teach Impact Theory University. I teach mindset. And I'm trying to get people to understand, like, you've got to know what the mechanisms are. Do not be a slave to your brain. Understand how your brain works. Understand where you can insert yourself, where you can change things, change direction. And so that became my obsession, was that unlocked something for me. And I was like, yo, like if this is one thing that it's unlocked, what else could it unlock? And so I just became absolutely obsessed with the brain and its role in interpreting the world around me, that the brain doesn't make any effort to give you an objective presentation of what's real. It's just trying to keep you alive. And so I was like, all right, well, what's all the weird ways that it interprets things, and can I influence any of that? And the answer is yes. So I'll say you're 50% hardwired, never going to be able to change it, and you're 50% changeable. And in the 50% that you can change, I'll just say you can 100x whatever you're doing now. You can be 100 times better, 100 times more in shape, 100 times more knowledgeable, wealthier, like all of it. And maybe you're never going to be LeBron James. Maybe you're never going to be Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. But imagine having 100 times anything what you have now. It's life-changing. It is an event horizon beyond which you can't even see. And so just committing yourself to the belief that that's real will change everything. I mean, it certainly did for me.
And you spoke about it before, where it's this idea where you could take someone who's out of shape and completely give them 6 months and a proper diet, proper nutrition, and they can get in shape, and we can physically see the transformation. And you used that analogy before where you were like, that's the same thing with the brain, right? Where it's just like that person's on the treadmill, eating the broccoli and chicken and doing whatever they're doing. And it's like, if you're doing the same thing in your mind mentally and you're able to see it, you know what I realized, Tom, is just like, and one of the reasons I wanted us to sit down and talk is because I talk to so many people who literally can't even sit down and just visualize what they want without talking themselves down. So it's like, I want to be this, but they can't even allow themselves to elaborate in imagination of like what that could look like, what color that thing would be, the car, the house, whatever it is that you want. And then I think, wow, that's just so common. It's so common to just automatically deflate before you even really allow yourself to inflate. And that's really one of the key things that I think is the common thread when you're seeing someone, whether it's an artist, whether it's a celebrity, whatever, it's been them getting up every day, consistently. And I think a lot of people are always like, well, what's the magic trick? And it's like, the magic trick is consistency. And then I think from that space, right, comes the belief, because, oh, now I can hold that vision that I want longer than 5 minutes. Oh, now I'm actually taking steps towards that thing. I got a loan for that business. I got whatever. And then it starts to kind of like unfold, right? You know what I mean?
Oh, yes. And my friend, there really is a magic trick and all that. And I will give it to anybody who's willing to use this magic trick.
Wait,
and here,
if you want this magic trick, make sure you drop some flowers right now. We're giving Tommy flowers. Drop some flowers if you want the magic trick.
so here it is. If you view yourself through the lens of a moment, life is always going to be painful. But if you use the following mantra and view yourself through the lens of a lifetime, you will win. On a long enough timeline, I can beat anyone at anything. Now, we all know that's not true, right? On the world's longest timeline, I'm not going to beat LeBron James at basketball.
Yeah.
But if you act as if that is true, my whole life is predicated on, I let people laugh at me in the short term. The number of times that I fell down publicly or people made fun of me when I first started in business, everyone kept saying, who's the kid? Because I was the youngest person in the company. I didn't know shit about anything, and people were making fun of me. But by then I had realized that I was the learner. And so I was like, all right, motherfucker, let's see. Because I know one thing, nobody has the level of tenacity that I have. Now, it's not like I was born with that. I just decided that I was going to be tenacious. I decided to build the energy and enthusiasm around what I wanted to achieve, and that saw me through. But if people are willing to play the long game, man, if you play the long game, I promise you, you're going to be laughing. You're going to be laughing. So I will run you through, and I know you already know this because you mentioned it earlier, but let me run you through where I was when I was 18.
Yeah.
I'm leaving for college. My mom, who was always my biggest cheerleader, but my mom quietly assumed I was going to fail. My best friend said that he just assumed I was going to marshmallow my way through life. My mom had tried to get me into advanced gifted programs, as they were called back then. I don't know if they still call them that. She tried to get me into the gifted programs. I got rejected. And when I went to my father-in-law to ask his blessing to propose to his daughter, he said no, because he didn't think I'd be able to take care of her. So it's like, you can say, oh, these people, they just misidentified you. No, they didn't. That's just who I was at that time. That's where I was in my development. I didn't develop quickly. Other people develop faster than me. Other people are smarter than me. But dude, I just don't let people outwork me. And like, that's the fucking thing. Like, understand, literally until we went live, I'm sitting here learning. I've got my headphones in. I'm listening to content that is, I never know when I'm going to hit on something that's just fucking crazy powerful and is going to change my life. So I'm just like, I'm learning, I'm reading, I'm listening. I'm so fucking open. Like, anybody comes up to me and is like, Tom, let me tell you why you're an asshole. Most people can be like, fuck you, man, I'm not an asshole. I'm going to be like, yo, for real? Tell me. I want to know, because I'm going to collect that information. And that moment is going to suck for me like it will suck for anybody else. But I don't turn around and say what an asshole that person was. I go, what do they have to teach me? Because when people want to hurt you, Sean, they say what's real. People don't hurt you with random shit. They hurt you with the thing. They're like, this motherfucker, I'm going to burn him with this. This shit is going to hurt. And because they know that they're either right on the truth or they're real close to it. And that's what people will try to damage you with. So if you can be open to that, like, you can learn. And so my obsession became, all right, motherfucker, we're going to see who's going to be laughing in 10 years. Yes, you're winning right now, 100%. I look like a fool. But I'm learning in this moment, and you're just proud to be trying to squish me and make fun of me and get one up on me. And then, dude, look, my life is ridiculous now. Like, when I thought I was going to have kids, I was going to take them on a tour of LA, and I was going to start them where I moved to first, and then show them different places where my junker cars broke down, show them where my car got stolen, show them the place where the guy threatened to beat me to death with a towel rod, like, show them all these moments, right, of like how I came up. And then the punchline is, of course, the fucking mansion that they're living in. And I'm like, but this is like how I came up. because I let somebody laugh at me here. I let him make fun of me here. And I didn't fucking fight. I took in the information and I got better relentlessly, getting better and better and better, because most people, they don't have the will. And so the magic trick is to be able to be laughed at today, knowing that you're focused on getting better every day. And dude, in 3 years, your life will look different. In 10 years, you'll be a dominant force. It's just that fucking simple.
Well, and because some of those things, I know you mentioned before, like with some of your team meetings, that you were like, yo, what am I doing? Like, what can we do better? And you said that it helps you with blind spots, so that you're not just like, you know, because sometimes somebody's giving you some information, whether it be the truth, whether it be something they're trying to damage you with, but it's an opportunity, and it's about recognizing opportunity. We talk a lot about creating opportunity, but we don't talk about being prepared to actually deal with what that opportunity is, because every opportunity isn't an opportunity that brings money, finances, or that brings opportunity. It's an opportunity sometimes to deal with yourself, grow mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and sometimes whether that relationship didn't work, you lost that job, like what did you learn? And so how can you learn and apply? Because I always have to ask that question, where if I learned something that I can't apply to something else, did I actually learn? You know what I mean?
Yes, I do, my friend. That is deep wisdom.
It's complete craziness, you know? So for the people that are just jumping on right now, we're talking about this conversation about success. And when we see success, it's really how he identifies himself, his values, and his beliefs. So now I want to ask you about your values.
Yeah, so this is a big one. So I'll give you an example. There are people who will say, as long as I help one person, it was worth it. And we're all like, damn, man, that's beautiful. Like, that's like, I feel your fucking heart in that. And I'm like, fuck that. If my life ended up where I helped one person, I will be traumatized. I will haunt myself like that. I value scale. Now, I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying it's true to me. I value scale. I've chosen to value that. I've invested a lot of energy in making that real in my life. I have chosen to value not only helping myself, but other people. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to do that. I'm just saying I've chosen to value that. Now, I have my reasons. I think that it aligns with the physics of being human. I think as a social creature, we want to do that. But it's like, you get to pick your values. You get to decide what matters to you. I had a guest on the show recently, and I will not name this motherfucker's name, but let me tell you that it was gross, man. I get why people say eat the rich. Now, I have done very well for myself, but meeting this person, I was like, this motherfucker. Like, this is why people say it. Like, I am literally, dude, I could buy an island and retire. And I'm working harder than I've ever worked, because I really believe that I can help people make change and do better in their lives. And I'm not okay living in a world where your zip code is the most predictive of your future success. Let that shit sink in. Not your IQ. Sean, if your IQ determined your success, I'd still be angry.
Right.
But I could, like, get by. Your fucking zip code, dude, come on. That is the most absurd. I can't be in that world. So this is called an animus. I always tell an entrepreneur, if you want to make change, if you want to build something, you better have a fucking animus. There better be something where you're like, I cannot accept this. And I've worked in the inner cities enough to be like, yo, I don't accept that. There's beautiful, extraordinary people who will do fuck all with their life because they were just handed a mindset that's patently ridiculous. And you could take that same person, move them somewhere else, and they will grow up radically different. So anyway, that's my obsession. That's something I've chosen to value. Again, I don't need people to choose my values. I'm just saying they dictate your behavior. They dictate how you feel about yourself. They dictate how you move through the world. And your thoughts only matter as much as how they manifest as action. So I'm obsessed with how people act. So I tell them, don't let your values be by accident. And for most people, values happen by accident. It's what their parents taught them, and that's that.
Now, I'm giving you a virtual hug right now. Like, if you feel it, that's me. Like, there's so much sauce in everything you just said, because I think what happens is, like, you grow up in your specific neighborhood or society, and as pertaining to zip code, we have these ideas of what success is, right? We have these ideas of, it's the elaborate car, it's where you live, it's the zip code. Talk to me about unlearning, because this is something I have conversation with my close friends about all the time, because I was like, wait, why do I like this? Do I really like this? Is this something that was kind of taught to me, that I have to live in a nice zip code to really understand, you know what I'm saying? So talk to me about unlearning.
Yeah, so one, going back to the brain, you just have to understand how the brain works. So the brain uses what are called heuristics. So a heuristic, that's just a fancy word for rule of thumb. So your brain, certainly at a conscious level, it cannot reprocess every fucking thing every time you encounter it, right? So the best example I heard of, if we actually perceived reality the way that it is, all you would see is you'd look out there and be like, this number of photons in this spectrum of light are landing on that thing and bouncing back to my eye. Like, think how absurd that is. You don't. You look out and you see, I see something green, I see something black, something white. You know what I mean? And like shapes and all that shit. So it's, to perceive things as they actually are, as like math, would be impossible. So you immediately accept that, oh, okay, the world is broken down into heuristics. It's like that, it's green, it's a certain shape, my brain just assumes it's a plant, right? So like, think about a praying mantis. You assume for a second that it's a plant. You don't notice that it's not actually a leaf, that it's alive.
Yeah.
Because it is using the fact that your brain uses heuristics to go, something that looks like that, that's that color, that shape, that's a leaf or whatever. So all right, we're all dealing in the realm of heuristics. So now you have to be careful, because those things become hardwired. They're default assumptions that you just assume are the truth of the world. And it's that sense that something that has sort of always been in your life, right? Your parents give you a lot of your values. Money is one, right? Like, oh man, the rich are evil and they cheat people to get the money. Well, if somebody says that, you're going to have a negative view on money. And I can tell you that that person will not end up making a substantial salary, because they will be conflicted even asking for a raise, because it's like, well, money's icky, money's gross, we don't talk about money. And so they're not financially literate. It like has this whole knock-on effect, right? I never had that value around money. For me, it was like, money was fucking powerful. Like, if I had money, then I can go do what I want. I can build the things I want. And that just sounded rad to me. So I never had any negative connotation. So that's like the things that people have to unlearn are myriad, dude. Like, it's that what I tell people, because it would be almost impossible to say, you know, change your thinking around these things. And
Right.
I'll flip it and say, only do and believe that which moves you towards your goals. Now,
Wait. You gotta slow that shit down. You gotta say that shit one more time for the people in the back. Say it again.
yeah, so this goes to beliefs or rules. I have a rule in my life, which is that I only do and believe that which moves me towards my goals. Now, that tells me I need to be fucking careful what my goals are, because everything in my life is going to be geared towards that. But once I pick a goal that's going to lead me to fulfillment, okay, which I'll say is the only emotional state that sustains highs and lows, right? Whether something's going wrong or something's going right, fulfillment, that stays, that lasts. So, okay, I choose my goals wisely. Now it's like, I'm going to be a slave to that. So I'm going to act in accordance at all times with what I allow myself to say to myself, what I allow myself to think, right? Going back to, in fact, you're seeing an echo of it in something I said earlier, which was, on a long enough timeline, I can be anyone at anything. Now, I know that isn't true, but I don't allow myself to repeat anything else, because even though I will eventually bump into something where it was like, oh, well, shit, I can't get better than that person at this. But think about how much better at basketball I could get if I went out and practiced every day like I actually could beat LeBron, right? Now, I never will, but I would get so much better. It's that 100x thing, right? Because you put in the energy. It goes back to what I referred to earlier, the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is the following, that if I put energy and effort into getting better, I actually will get better. That's the only belief that matters, because that will dictate your behavior. You will take actions to improve. And if you take actions to improve, you actually will improve. And improving is the name of the game, which goes back to, on a long enough timeline, I can be anyone and anything, to play the long game, to let people laugh at you now, knowing that you're going to win in the long run. Like, this all revolves around like these ideas. Yeah. So you have to unlearn limitations for sure, and just at all times operate in accordance with your goals. Like, if you do that, naturally you're going to break through a lot of limiting beliefs and stupid behaviors and all that kind of stuff.
And just even asking where those limitations, where the fuck did they come from? Like, because some of those limitations are mostly from people who, in their own life, out of fear, out of whatever, don't believe in that thing, or sometimes out of love. Like my mom, like your mom was like, yo, come home, but hers is out of fear of the world, right? It's like, oh, well, you're going to get into the world, and then the world is so crazy, so come home. And it's like, Ma, I'm good. Like, and imagine had I went home out of fear, right? And so there's all that piece. And then you speak a lot about hard work and work ethic. And I think one of the things that I hear also is flexibility. I think, how flexible do you think, because with the rules and the boundaries that you're like, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, how flexible does one have to be, specifically as an entrepreneur, an artist, as a creative, with their vision and their goal, because sometimes it may look like something else. For me, for example, I came and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna do this thing, and then this other thing sprouted up that has changed my entire life, every piece of it, and my ability to be flexible with what is coming has allowed me to be in spaces that I didn't even see, like couldn't even, where the fuck? So what do you think about flexibility in that space?
So this is one, if you want me to slow down, I will say this one slow or repeat it.
Whoa.
Strong convictions, loosely held. Strong convictions, loosely held. Don't be afraid to have an opinion. Don't be afraid to believe something with all your might and run 1,000 miles an hour in that direction. But always, always, always be prepared to realize, oh, this actually isn't working. This isn't moving me towards my goal, and therefore I need to change. And what I find is people become dogmatic because they want to be right. And that goes back to what you build your self-esteem around matters. So if you value yourself as a human being for being right, which I think most of us do by default, because it feels awesome. But if you value yourself for being right, you will try to protect that even in the outward sign. So even if you know you're wrong, you'll fight for that idea because you want other people to think you were right. And this is like one of the #1 death knells in an like romantic relationship. You know you're wrong, but it's like you want to convince that person that you're right because that'll make you feel smart and powerful and all that. So letting go of that and realizing I only do and believe that which moves me towards my goals. So if I'm wrong, I need to know that. And this is why if somebody stopped me and said, let me tell you why you're an asshole, I'm like, fucking fantastic. Because now I'm going to be able to use, I can either say they're actually wrong, that doesn't make sense, in which case I don't need to feel badly about it anyway. And if they're right, while it is going to sting, it ultimately is going to be super powerful. So it's like, cool, I need to know it. Painful or not, I need to know it. The pain is going to be momentary. The leverage I will get from having the scales removed from my eyes and being able to see a weakness because I can improve it, right? Because I can learn anything at any time. And so I just need to put the energy into improving this thing. Now, someone may point something out to me and be like, you suck at this. And I'll go, yeah, you're right about that. But I'm not interested in putting the time and energy into getting better. And so everything comes down to a choice, right? Like when I look at my physique and I'm like, look, I know all about nutrition. I know all about working out, but I don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. Why? And the answer is because I don't care enough. I don't want to put in the time and the energy. There are other things that I would rather be doing, but I don't whine about my genetics or anything like that. I'm just like, well, I know what I would need to do to get better. I choose not to do it. Therefore, I'm not going to waste time feeling badly about it. It's all a choice. And I'm getting to do this other thing because I'm not putting time and energy into that thing. And so once you just sort of take ownership of where you're at, that your life is an exact reflection of your choices. Another thing I will repeat, your life is an exact reflection of your choices. So you want a different life, make different choices. It's that simple. It's not easy.
It's not easy. Simple. Yo, nothing about that is easy. And when I think about it, like the decisions, like when I think about people's decisions and how that can change life and culture, your entire thing, you could have made the decision when your mom called for you to go back to be like, I'm deciding to go back home. Thus, millions of people would not have been able to benefit from what you've been able to create from that space. When you think about decisions, and I think people think, oh, big decision. It's the small decisions. It's the small decisions to stay. You said your car broke down. I remember when I was living in my car, I'm like, I'm not going back to New York. Like, I'm not going. I'm not going to go. I decided, and shit just started to like sprout up and flourish and bloom in different spaces. But the decisions that we have to make along the way, and it's not always the big decision. It's the small, everyday decisions, which brings me to my next point about habits. You spoke about, and for y'all who are just joining again, we're breaking down Tom things of success in terms of how he identifies, values, beliefs. And right now, I wanted to ask you about that, about your habits. So and tangible things that people listening can do, or what daily habits they should have.
Oh, I will give them literally the perfect stack. If you follow it, your life will never be the same. I like specific actionable shit. When I get people on the show that will not give me specifics, I want to choke them to death. So I will hold to my own standard. I will give you guys step-by-step instructions. All right. So I forget the exact quote. I should memorize this one because it comes up enough, which is excellence is not something you do. It's a habit, and therefore excellence is what you do every day. Oh God, I'm really fucking that up. But basically the idea is that it is only the things that you do consistently that lead to what people would recognize as excellence, right? So think about Kobe Bryant, right? One of my favorite stories Jay Williams told on the show, and he said it was Jay Williams' rookie season for the Bulls playing the Lakers, and Jay was like, I'm going to go out on the court and I'm going to practice before the game. I take this shit seriously. We're going to win this. It's going to be amazing. And he goes out on the court and Kobe's already there. And he's like, God damn. And he said Kobe was doing like game speed moves, like going hard. And Jay practiced for like an hour and a half, and he sort of loses sight of the fact that Kobe was there practicing. And Jay's like, fuck, man, I need to stop. Otherwise, I'm going to be spent for the game. And so he quits, and he realizes he can still hear a basketball dribbling. And he turns around, and Kobe's still practicing. And he's like, what the fuck? They go, and they play. Lakers smash them. Kobe scores like 40 points or something absolutely ridiculous. And Jay goes up to Kobe after the game. He's like, Kobe, I got to ask, man, why'd you stay in the court so long before the game? And Kobe's like, look, I don't mean this disrespectfully at all, but I needed you to know that I'd outwork you. And I was like, oh, God.
Bro,
like,
chills.
Right? That's excellence. It's how you are every day. It's the practice before the game that makes for excellence.
It's
so,
not the game.
Dude, that's it. So now here are the things that people should be doing every day. So number one.
Yo, wait, get your shit out, get your notepad, like open up the notepad on your phone. Get ready. Go ahead.
All right. So number one, it's all about cognitive optimization. So only do and believe that which moves you towards your goals. You got to get your brain right. I wish you didn't. I cannot tell you how little I care about the things I'm about to tell you to do. I wish I did not need to do them. But the reality is, if you want to stay sharp, you have to. So number one, motherfuckers, will you get your diet right? So you've got to eat right. Actually, if that's number one, point five, even before that, is sleep. So the perfect day starts the night before. Everybody thinks, because I talk about grinding and going hard and all that shit, which is all real, that they think that I go without sleep. I do not. I prioritize sleep. I have not set an alarm. Let this sink in. I have not set an alarm in 15 years. Now, sure, to make an early morning flight or something like that, but I'm saying like consistently. I do not set an alarm. I built a $1 billion company without setting an alarm. Okay, so
hold on, billion.
True. So look, you're gonna have to give up a lot if you want to be successful or be great at anything, but sleep is not one of them. So get your sleep. You must. Otherwise, you will perform so subpar that the number of hours you'll have to throw at things just to make up for how much slower you're thinking doesn't make any sense. So get sleep. Second, eat right. Like that is just fucking absolutely critical to get your mind in the place it needs to be. Third, exercise. Exercise. I hate the gym, and yet I work out every day. Well, 5 days a week. So I'm a totally different person on the weekends. But Monday through Friday, my ass is in the gym. And that is to cognitively optimize. Read the book Spark by John Rady. He goes into like what it does to you cognitively, actually contracting your musculature secretes BDNF, which is brain food, is probably the easiest way to think of it. There's a whole host of benefits to working out, longevity, the ability to generate ATP, which is the actual energy source at a cellular level. People always ask me how I have so much energy. It's because I fucking sleep, eat right, and exercise. Like my ability to create ATP is crazy. So at a cellular level, I have the energy that I need to do the shit that I want to do. So that's just real talk. I hate that all of that is true. It's not like I want that to be true. It just is true. This is the physics of being a human. So you're going to do all of those things. And then for the love of God, find people to connect with. So humans need to love and be loved. So nobody is more introverted than me. I get it. But man, you got to find a way to connect with people. You got to find a way to share things with people, to thrive and really be doing well. So on the daily, talk to somebody you love and care about. That's going to be big. And I'll walk you through my daily routine so we can translate this into actual things that I do.
And before you do that, Tom, what I want to mention is that I feel like that diet and that workout is centered about the gym, but also just in life, right? Like you got to take a diet away from toxic people. You have to diet away from your own fears. You have to diet away from the old routines and bad habits. Like the same way you look at candy, if it's making you gain weight, you go into the cabinet and reaching for fear again, it's making you gain weight. You go into the cabinet and reach for old friends who are about fuck shit or not about anything, it's gain weight. You working out mentally, like what you said earlier about just shifting the mind, like just to close your eyes and whether it's meditate, pray, levitate, whatever it is you need to do. But like he's saying workout and diet, but it's easily transferable in all those different spaces. Okay, go ahead.
Dude, very, very well said. So yeah, I go to bed at 9 like it's a religion. I don't set an alarm. I wake up when I wake up. I work out fasted. So that's like a whole thing. We could do a whole IG live just on fasting. But I work out fasted, and then I meditate. Meditation has been a life changer for me. So if somebody were to ask me like, hey, what's the one thing you would ask people to do that would have the biggest impact on their life? Meditate. It's measurable. Like you can actually measure the changes in the brain. So you need to create a calm and creative space, which is what's called an alpha wave state, which is exactly what happens when you meditate. Also, it just lowers your stress and anxiety. So in terms of having a long life, a life that is at least more optimized for health. I'll say you have to get the diet and the exercise right if you really want to optimize for health. But it plays a huge role just lowering your stress and anxiety. I struggled profoundly with anxiety. I started getting control of it probably about 4 years ago. But leading up to that, it got debilitating. So learning how to manage that through meditation was huge for me. That's a really big one. So I meditate, then I'll eat. I don't take my first meeting. I try not to take my first meeting until noon. I'm super dogmatic about not taking it before 10. That's so that I have my own space. I create a list. It's my important things list. Everybody should have one so that you never have to waste time thinking about what you should be doing next. I curate the list the night before rather than the morning of, so I don't have to waste time thinking about it. And then I just dive into it, right? I'm moving towards my goals. My goals are exciting to me. Nobody has to push me. I'm doing it for my own reasons. And yeah, that's it. The one thing that I'll add to that is if you don't do hard things, I highly encourage you to take a cold shower. It is a great way to do something hard that'll start your day, that will help you earn self-respect. It is very weird how doing something hard in and of itself will make you feel better about yourself. So that is something I highly, highly, highly encourage people to do. I took cold showers for over a year. I've now gotten a little less dogmatic about taking them every day. But for a year, I took them every day, and it was fucking awesome.
Bro,
so
with the cold showers, like the alert, you're just like, you're on. You're like, all right, what am I really, what is really concerning? What is really important? Where's my goal? Because you're like, I want to get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? You're like, just
yes.
What's really important to watch? Like, what do I really need to get done? Wow. Okay.
100%.
Bro.
And that's it. And then after that, it's work. And Monday through Friday, if I'm awake, I'm either working or working out. That's my promise to myself. But I will say that if you love what you do, sometimes some of the work is incredibly powerful. So if I'm preparing for an episode of Conversations with Tom, which is a show specifically around things I'm fascinated by, it's like I'd be doing this for free anyway. I'm building the next Disney. So it's like I actually need to watch anime. So it's like I didn't grow up with anime. I'd never seen anime until about 3 months ago. And now I'm a psychopath. It is so interesting. So like diving into worlds like that, that everything that's moving you towards your goals. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. And then on the weekends, I relax things a lot. I take my calories up. So I'm pretty strict on just the sheer amount of calories I take in to stay healthy. Longevity, the only thing they found that prolongs life in every single species is caloric restriction. So I keep that tight, but on the weekends, I throw it into the air. I take my calories up. I keep my calories pretty clean. But I don't go hungry on the weekends. Let me tell you that. So, and then on the weekends, I prioritize my marriage, and that's it. And I hang out with my wife, and I cuddle the shit out of my wife, and it's just amazing. And we hang out and have fun and all that good stuff.
I literally have so many things I want to ask you, and we have 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you something really quick and as quickly as you can, although I don't know how quickly you'll be able to answer this because it's a good
Let's
question.
speed round. I love this shit. Let's do it. Here we go.
While he's answering that, guys, drop some flowers if you want me to get to the questions. I'm going to get to the questions that y'all have stocked up in here. Drop some flowers while I ask him this question. Everybody you have connected with, everybody you have had conversations with, you have interviewed, what is the biggest thing you've learned? What's the common thread between all of those people that you've learned through impact theory that impact theory has taught you?
You have to take responsibility for everything in your life. That is the most universal principle of success that there is. So if you're not sure what I mean by that, read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin.
Extreme Ownership. I'm about to get that book.
Dude, life-changing.
Bro, Tom, let's see. Okay, so the first question is, Tom, can you elaborate on knowledge and why only some of it resonates?
Can I elaborate on knowledge in general? I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but in the spirit of speed round, I will say this. You want to encounter as many new ideas as you can. Don't worry if some of it lands flat with you. Just move on to the next thing. So if we all responded to everything in the same way, life would not be very interesting. Part of what makes you a unique voice worth listening to is you respond to different things. I became a much better interviewer when I finally said, fuck it, I'm not going to try to do the interview everybody else thinks I should do. I'm going to do the interview where I respond naturally to the things I actually respond to. And I'm going to chase the things I find fascinating. Whether somebody else would do it the same or not is irrelevant to me. I'm going to go down the rabbit holes I want to go to. So yeah, let things hit you differently.
It personal to you, and then that's what's really coming across is the authenticity and the excitement and passion around that. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
What are your thoughts of duality thinking, left and right brain thinking at the same time?
So I think that we all sort of naturally gravitate towards probably the five big personality ocean is a better way to think of it than just left brain, right brain. So as they found that the brain is so interconnected that it doesn't really work like that. But I think people do think in different ways. I think that understanding your personality type can be very powerful. Understanding the personality types of the people most important to you is critical if you want to have a good relationship with them. And yeah, love the variety. It's super powerful. And as long as you're just doing things that move you towards your goals, it's A-okay.
Difference between extreme ownership and
the blame game. Yeah, so here's the thing. Extreme ownership is literally the polar opposite of blaming, because you're not saying I need to feel badly about this. Blame is about identifying who fucked up and who needs to be shamed and punished. And that's not the idea between taking ownership in your life. Taking ownership is about, there's a lesson here. If I look at this from a position of control and say, I did X and I got Y result, well, then what happened if I did B? Would I get D result? Like, what do I need to do to get the result that I want? But if you're saying, oh, it's somebody else's fault, reason that I'm here, then you don't ask the right question.
Right. It's somebody else's job to make it, you know what I mean, to make that my thing work for me.
Correct. And it puts you in a passive stance. You never want to be passive. So it's definitely not about blame.
How to make changes when there's boundaries that you cannot have, that basically you don't have control over.
So one, I reject the notion that you don't have control over things. So let's take coronavirus. How much of my time did I spend trying to warn the world against wet markets? Exactly zero. Did I know that wet markets were a problem? Yes, I did. Did I know that diseases routinely travel from animals to humans? Yes, I did. Did I do anything to stop it? No, I did not. Now, I think that that's a wise use of my time. I think everybody should be pursuing something differently, so I'm not beating myself up over it, but I'm also not going to pretend that I didn't know it was a thing and that I couldn't have done something about it. So this is what I'm talking about with extreme ownership. So it's, hey, if we want to make sure that we don't end up in this situation again, we need to make sure that we make different choices. Maybe I was never going to do that because I'm not good enough at science, whatever. Did I lobby the government? No. Did I ever once do an IG Live? I have an audience of 1.5 million people. I've never fucking talked about it until this happened. So I'm not going to waste time saying that, oh, this is all out of my control and there's nothing I could have done. Now, since we all know secretly that there are some things out of our control, the other way to think about it is to recognize that either get out of that situation and move on to something that you have more control over, or find what works within that organization. So I always tell people, you don't have to be to have a certain role in a company to provide leadership. So going in and being a leader, if it's you're in it, because this is where most people struggle with this, is either a family or their job, and there's a culture within the family or a culture within the job that they have not been able to change. And my thing is, you have two options: quit or act in accordance with the way that you want things to be. And if you're uplifting people, if you're getting things done better, if you're outperforming, then you may, at least in your sort of small region, be able to have significant impact, or they're going to fucking fire you and force you to move on. And that could be a beautiful thing. But like, nobody can force me not to do me. Read the Gulag Archipelago, where Solzhenitsyn talks about what it's like to be in the Soviet camps. Read the Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He talks about how you always have space to control your reaction even in the concentration camps. That man was in 4 Nazi concentration camps. He was a neuroscientist, comes out, writes a fucking book about it. It's crazy. You can actually find interviews from a guy that survived 4 concentration camps. You think, but that's so far in the past. He was still giving interviews, dude. It's crazy. So those 2 guys will give you a sense you have far more control than you think. There will be consequences, but you have far more control than you think.
Oh! Okay, your views on time management. Well, we kind of spoke about that.
Yeah, I'll give it to you quick. Time management is real. Make your important things list. Do things in the right order. Don't waste your time. Hold yourself accountable. Stay focused. Eat right, exercise, because that actually impacts your ability to focus.
Do you have a vision board? How do you find your passion? Set goals when demoted?
Ooh, this person's cheating. That's a lot of questions. Do I have a vision board? No. Did I used to? Yes. I think they can be very powerful depending on where you're at in your life. I journal, though. I journal like a freak. How do you find your passion? You don't find your passion. Passion is not an archaeological dig. Passion is an architectural build. Okay? All of this stuff is a process. So people expect to turn inward and find like this glowing orb of meaning that's been waiting their entire life for them to find it. It does not work like that. Like you can imagine, if Steve Jobs' passion was technology, what if he had been born 1,000 years ago? It would not have been technology. So it's not like he would have wasted his life 1,000 years ago. He would have developed something else into a passion. So this is about finding something you do truly resonate with, but then you have to go through a process of building passion. Because we're in the speed round, I won't be able to tell you what that is. Tips for tackling anxiety: meditate and diet. Believe it or not, diet is huge when it comes to anxiety. Artificial sweeteners, I think, play a huge role in anxiety, so be very careful with that. If you're drinking a lot of diet soda like I do, you can really get yourself into an anxious state. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, meditation has been the biggest thing. Stop rehearsing failure. That's a huge one. You think you're just planning for these inevitable outcomes and you want to make sure that you have an escape route. All you're doing is rehearsing it going wrong. The things that you think over and over and over, your brain goes, this is calorically expensive. I need to cheapen this by hardwiring it. So now you imagining getting up in front of a crowd and how you might fuck up and screw up and how you would get off stage. Your brain's going, okay, cool. Getting on stage means panicking. It means that we're going to fuck up. And so it hardwires that. And so that emotion is ready. So let failure be a surprise. Practice the 1,000 ways you're going to win. And then you'll find that actually lowers your anxiety.
Wait, Tom, just the stage part, like I have 2 minutes before IG shuts off. I hate that it does that. Guys, all I want to see in the comments right now are flowers. We're giving Tom flowers. That's our way of saying thank you to him. That's our way of just all the flowers, Piccadilly, like everything, roses, just flowers, flowers, flowers. Tom, that part though about the stage and you rehearse that failure. Oh, I gotta talk to you about that another time. That was definitely me. But Tom, bro, I just wanted to say, in the most general part of my heart, I just wanted to say thank you as somebody who consumes, again, about the diet part, who consumes the content with Impact Theory and just how you have leveraged and used. And I am well aware that none of that comes without sacrifice. I'm well aware that none of that comes without personal things that you've had to experience and go through and wonder and cry and feel like, what the fuck, and blah, blah, blah. But from the bottom of everything I have, I just want to say thank you, because this is what it looks like when somebody uses their platform and figures out how to make it not just about them. And you have done that in a way that I don't have words for. I looked in the dictionary, they don't exist, that I don't have words for. And it's not lost on me that comes without a lot of hard work and sacrifice. And I personally, for everybody here, I'm gonna just say thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on, dude. It was awesome.
Bro,
I really appreciate it.
I'm gonna text you in a minute.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, see you later, Tom.
All right, man. Peace out.
Bye. Guys, if you did not grow, if you just did not connect with that in a real way, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm gonna save this live for y'all because I know y'all are already in here asking me how. But Tom is completely amazing. And I thank you all for showing up and for showing out. And I hope that you all got a chance to really, really listen and learn. And got some more lives coming up for you. Bye.